Hi, it's Will from AusMed. We're super excited to have partnered with Leaders Summit to bring you this online learning experience. Online learning works. It's low cost, fast-paced, and genuinely helps providers build workforce capability at scale. To find out how you could give your staff access to the over 1,250 learning experiences from AusMed, fill in the form coming up on your screen now.
Join me nice and loud so they can hear it next door. Nice and loud so they can hear it next door. We're welcoming Aaron on stage.
Thank you, James. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. So in the allocated 15 to 20 minutes, I'll try and speed date you as best as I can on three broad topics, basically the origins of Odyssey and where we see ourselves going, how we operate, and then share some of the learnings. So as part of the advertorial that we have here, you'll see a fair few of our pictures, and you've heard from Chris this morning. There's no doubt it's an exciting part of the segment to be in. There's lots of opportunities, but there is one big caveat. These are not passive businesses at all. When you're putting in 24/7 care into a retirement village, you're creating a very heavily regulated and complex business with lots of moving pieces, littered with risk and pitfalls. So in my opinion, you don't get to the end of the development phase and put the queue in the rack. It really needs agile, hands-on executive team able to deal with those inevitable challenges as they come, and also pivot and change your strategy as you need. So this is Phil. I think most of you would know Phil. Phil is our founder and the largest shareholder. So this business that we have now is a major upgrade on the first business that Phil started called Tall Trees. It was a supported living business back in the early noughties. He actually co-created that for his mum who had dementia and couldn't find a place that ticked all the boxes. So now we're 20 years plus on. The built form's changed dramatically and the care's been enhanced quite a bit, with that core message up there. If it's not good enough for our mums, it's not good enough. That's still what really drives our team and is our call to arms. In terms of vision, on day one when we opened our doors 5 years ago, we really had a vision of owning the Gold Coast when it came to quality care in that over 85 market. We monitor it every quarter. We have quite a complex three-way financial model that attaches to our strategic plan. So I'll just run you through reasonably quickly the sites that we have. So we have 4 sites at different stages of development and planning. When we're completed, it'll be circa 840, maybe 850 homes. We have got a foot on 2 more sites, but certainly no rush to do those. So with Robina, that was our first one. We opened that in August 2020. So those of you with a good memory, that was right in the middle of the COVID era. We're on the border of New South Wales with a lot of residents wanting to come over from the Tweed. So that was our first challenge. It's located right next to Robina Town Centre. That's the largest shopping centre on the Gold Coast, and within a kilometre of Robina Hospital. So we had 170 odd residents there. It's 25% couples, 75% singles. Gender mix, we're 68% ladies, 32% guys, and we're presently at 97% occupancy. So just a couple of images to give you a feel for it. Stage 1 was 99 apartments. 81 of those what we call Odyssey apartments. 18 was specialist disability accommodation. We really liked the cash flow profiles as a startup. As we got into it, it's just too much admin time, but they've got hoists and they were actually quite good for us to do higher levels of care. Stage 2 was another 55. That sold out quite quickly. The big difference between those two is we introduced powder rooms. So the first stage didn't have a separate toilet. Our residents said they wanted separate toilets. We also put in a floor of dementia care, which we call Memory Lane. Our third stage and fourth building is currently under construction. That'll add another 68. So it'll take us to 221 in total. And in that one, we'll have more amenity, and we'll also have another floor of the dementia care, which I'll cover off in a bit more detail. So in terms of apartment size, our single bedders are about 60 to 67 metres, 2 bedders are about 81 to 110 metres, and 3 bedders, which are just in this final stage, they're about 120 to 136. We have really nice dining facilities. It's a big part of the formula. We presently sit about 120, and with the 4th tower coming on, we're enclosing part of our alfresco area to get another 60. We were envisaging 2 shifts, but the residents said, no, it's our home. We want to come down when we want to give the residents what they want. So the last one here for Robina is our dementia. We call it Memory Lane, as I said before. There's a lot of thought gone into this process. We think we've got about 90% right. Just going through a little facelift at the moment to try and plug those gaps. So once the fourth tower is done, there'll be 20 of those in total. So Chevron Island is our first foray into a high-rise. So this one's being built by Multiplex. Our first one was through Hutchinson's. This one's due for completion next March. It was meant to be July, but we've got a unionised builder and it's forever raining on the Gold Coast, so we're miles behind. But when you have a look at it, for those of you who don't know, Chevron Island is actually part of Surfers Paradise as a suburb. So we're only 1 kilometre to the beach and 80 metres to the main rivers. And when you look at the design, it's very much a statement piece. Probably the thing of note here is the top 3 floors we haven't done before. They're really high end. So there's 3 bedrooms. They're about 226 metres each, 3 mini penthouses and 3 maxi penthouses. So they're 512 metres with a rooftop terrace, and I'll show you some images. So they're designed for someone that is super high net wealth, maybe wants a private carer and is prepared to pay for the best. So just give you a bit of idea on some of the renders. This is the foyer, so very much like a 5-star hotel, salon, coffee shop. This is the dining facility. So I said that's a big part of what we do. It's part of the secret sauce, I guess, in the formula. My dad spent a few days in restaurant at Robina. He doesn't say a lot. I asked him how the stay was. He said, mate, the food's good. That's all he said. So we have very open kitchens. You can see the residents each day coming in and out. They engage with the chefs that we have. So we've got a pool at Chevron, which we didn't have at Robina. There's a hydraulic hoist, which will help any impaired resident be able to get in and out of the water. There's also a gym there. And this one, we've nailed the formula just to the left there. That's where the doctors' suites are, and that's where the allied health, the physios, will be as well. So just a couple of quick looks at the penthouses. This is the kitchen. So when you see it, instantly it's very opulent. There's also those subtle things that make it special for people who are quite fragile state of their life, but it's not in your face and obvious. The irony is those Gaggenau ovens there probably never get used. Often when there's a resale, the instructions are still there. That's rooftop terraces I mentioned before. So Hope Island is our third one. Most important one for myself because my parents are moving in there. They live about 100 metres from this site. So we settled this last year in February and we've been going through the planning phase for some time. So Hope Island's the northern part of the Gold Coast, adjacent to Santry Cove and Runaway Bay, both very affluent areas. It's also a number of retirement villages we think are feeders for us. This one we're going to build ourselves. So we've been through 2 tier 1 builders and good relationships. It's just had trouble keeping it more so to time rather than to budget. So we've incorporated our own company called Odyssey Built. So just looking at the renders here, I heard those giggles. So it's 2 16-storey towers. So this is impact accessible development. It's not code accessible, which is why it's taken so long. After a lot of back and forth with council, we think we've ticked all their boxes. It's been recommended by the bureaucrats for approval, and we're hopeful that'll be on the 8th of April. So pretty close, and if that's successful, hopefully we'll start construction around July, August time. So this one will have 233 apartments, 200 what we call Odyssey homes, 23 with the dementia, and 10 on the top 2 floors for the penthouses. So I think the other part for this one is that there's some community space. So we don't have community space in Robina, and that was something that council required. So Probus clubs, Lions clubs, those types of organisations can come, which we support. So the only other one there is we're trying to have a theme of the golf courses. There's 2 golf courses very close by, so the colour pattern is all around that. So our last one, which we only settled 3 and a bit weeks ago, is at Burleigh Waters. So this one here is a really nice piece of land. I don't have any renders yet because it's brand new. I'm very close to the site. I sit on the advisory board of the developer. It's 5.5 hectares, so a very large site. And I'll just show you a few elements of it. So just in there, there's a multi-storey medical centre going in with day surgery capability. It's been done by RAM. At the front there is a boutique grocer with butcher, baker, a couple of restaurants. If you know the Gold Coast, very similar to Isla Capri. This will be the first of the lakefront high-rises that the developer's going to do, and they're aiming to do up to 7. Our site is just along there. So over that's Bond University, and that's Bermuda Street, 60,000 cars a day going by. So we figure once we finish these 4, 850 in, we're a fair way down our path of our vision of trying to own the Gold Coast in this space. And if we can get those other 2 over time, we're certainly in no rush to do those. we think we'll get very good economies of scale with the oversight. So our model, I've been asked to do this in a very compressed period. I was just saying to Simon, I could easily do a day workshop on this, but I've done my best to try and condense it into one slide. So before I go through what I call the 4 key pillars of our business, I just wanted to highlight the importance of that very aligned corporate team and needing to be nimble. So we're only a 2-director organisation. Phil and I are the only 2 directors. We talk every day, and our 3 key execs have been with us for pretty much since inception. So it's very important when you run such a skinny team that you have that regular dialogue and you've got a finger on the pulse as you go. So the first part I want to talk about is development and construction, because that's where it starts. So for us, as you see, prime sites particularly important. We are a business class brand, so to speak. We're unashamedly don't try and be all things to all people. We've set up our own building company, as I mentioned, so we've got a couple of tier 1 people who we think will join us once we get that approval. We've had a full-time development manager for the last 3 years. In terms of consultants, the 2 main consultants would be our architects, helping us work on the model. I see one of them was here today. Also our town planner, helping us get it through council, because we need that extra 50% height uplift. We also need relaxation on parking. So if you don't take council on the journey, that can be tricky. In terms of KPIs, we monitor our sales rate and our profile of our residents, the rollover period, because that's how you work out how many you can actually do. Once that's set, it's build rate per square metre and length of program. So in terms of funding, our first 3 are with Catalyst. So Catalyst is a real estate investment trust. They're 100% owned by Australian retirement trustees. So it's you probably heard the terms OpCo, PropCo. They own the land. We have a 99-year arrangement. They have been the world's best partners for us, understand the industry intimately, and we've always viewed it as a partnership. Our 4th site I showed you there at Burleigh Waters is our first one with traditional bank funding and our own money, and that's fully supported by the Catalyst people. So next part is the sales and marketing. You build it, obviously you then have to sell it. This is the main part of the business that Phil's still involved with, and he's very, very good at it. He's a bit of a celebrity. We call him the Silver Fox when he walks on the beach at Surface. So in that, we built a brand around our name of the business: lifestyle, care, communities. In our world, they're all equally important, but there's no doubt care is the glue that keeps it together and what differentiates us from your traditional retirement village. So I'll spend a little bit of time talking on care, because I assume that's probably where most of the interest is. In simple terms, our residents can get as much or as little care as they want. It's 100% their choice. Having said that, every resident has access to the nurse call, every resident gets a care assessment upon entry, and every resident gets weighed and their vitals done on a monthly basis. So once they're provided with that choice, almost identical to Byron, just over 2/3 of our residents choose us to deliver their care. So the comparison to aged care often comes up. The easiest way to explain it is that subject to the capacity and willingness to pay of our residents, we can deliver similar levels of care to an aged care facility. The primary 2 differences is, other than our dementia ward, we're a closed door model. So the residents' homes, we only come in if we're invited and there's a scheduled plan. Secondly, we have a high tide mark on aggressive behaviours, and our high tide mark will be below a traditional rack that's better suited, and that's really about the enjoyment of the wider facility, and that is probably the greyest area that I come across. Those who do get care from us, about half are funded via home care packages, half are private. We're ambivalent as to where the money comes from. We just do and charge, but obviously it makes it more affordable. In terms of acuity, looking at the current home care packages, 47% are level 4, 31% are level 3. We've only got 1 resident at the moment on level 1. With our staff, we do care at cost. So we regularly compare that to the larger not-for-profits. In all cases, we do that at a cheaper rate. We actually make our money on the development side and through the exit fee structure. We also have the added advantage that there's no travel time and there's that continuity of staff. Along those lines, we don't use agency, again, very similar to Byron. We have a culture of sharing your shifts. We also have certain staff who is built into their package an allowance that they may be called upon in short notice. We've also got quite a few casuals. So as I touched on, we've developed a bit of a niche in the dementia space. Originally, it was designed for couples where one of them might transition into that field. but we've had a lot of demand for it, and there's been waiting lists at different times. If you look at the people who are on the home care packages, 45% of them have the dementia supplement. So we have quite a high proportion of our residents with the onset of dementia. We've done a lot of specific training in that area. But as I touched on before, the biggest challenge is what is that high tide mark? How do we go about that? We actually did a full-day course with the Dementia Australia with the virtual reality. I recommend it for anyone who hasn't done it. The last key piece of the care is that we have an on-site doctor model. So we've got 110 out of 170 residents presently seeing the on-site doctor. They do that over 3 days with an after-hours call service. Once the fourth tower's built and we've got better facilities for them, we think they'll be 5 days. And all the residents sign a consent, so we actually share the medical records. It helps us with that holistic care. We have allied as well, being podiatrists and physios on site as well. So the last part, and certainly not the least part, is the lifestyle and the operations. So we try and recruit people who have a background in hospitality, bring energy, and are also very patient. You can't avoid bingo. They love bingo, so just don't try and get rid of it. It's a staple. The meals, we also do meals at cost for our residents. We charge it for profit to their families and other parties. To give you an idea, we do about 230 covers a day. Most of that's at lunch, and we have an Odyssey Eats facility at night time where you can take it up to the residents' rooms. So what have we learned during this period? Maybe just in the basic, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. I think the first part is that everyone in the organisation has to connect with the cause. So Phil inducts everybody when they come into the organisation and tells his story. So a lot of our staff, I feel, work for the purpose as opposed to just the paycheck. The best example was Alfred Cyclone very recently. Our village manager slept in the boardroom for 4 days because she was worried that she may not be able to get back to work to see the residents. Certainly, don't try and be all things to all people. It's okay to say no, particularly if someone can't afford or their aggressive behaviours are above your high tide mark. And that's especially the case when you're 97% full. It just makes no sense to take that risk. The other thing I think is very important is that your sales and marketing team, and let's call it your representations, they really are in sync with your legal suite of documents and the resident experience. So no fine print, own your value. The last part, which RVs will do very well, is just remember the residents have to have fun. So we do a lot of themed events since Patrick's Day yesterday, always as entertainment, always doing excursions. So stuff where I think you could potentially make some trips, I guess, is aligning with the wrong funder. You need to have patient funding who understands the nuances and the profile of the cash flows. That's whether it's a REIT, MES fund, PE or a bank. Don't undersell the need for amenity. And that was a trap Phil and I fell into early. Oh, we can squeeze 1 or 2 more apartments in there. You gravitate towards the ingoing contribution. They're long-term assets, so you need to have things for the residents to do. You will make losses early on, so don't ignore those, but they can be monitored and planned for. And the last one down the bottom there, I just want to spend a little bit of time with, is whether you're in the industry or you're planning to go into the industry, it's really tricky with what's your cut-through message. We found towards the back end of last year, we were having residents go into hospital and they weren't coming back. So as you made the inquiries, people in hospital saying, well, that's an RV, you've got to go to a rack. So we've had to put on an extra resource, and their sole purpose is every morning we say who's in hospital, who may be going to hospital, which hospital, who we're going to go talk to, because we want them to come back. Very similar to the brand promise that Byron was talking about, being their last stop. So my last slide is what we're still learning. And personally, I'm still learning a lot because I'm only part-time executive since January. And Phil's been away for that period, so learning on the fly as we go. So the old saying is you don't know what you don't know. But a couple of key points for me is what is that optimal mix of staff? I call it the Goldilocks level of staff, especially as we're expanding. Also with our residents, as the acuity profiles change as they go, what is that right mix of residents? The ATO is undertaking a review of the sector. Some of you may be part of that. My background's in tax advisory. I've also been following this for a long period of time. They haven't updated their rulings since 2012, but the industry's changed infinitely since then, as has the quality of care standards. So we're hopeful they can catch up because it's highly material to the outcomes. The tech stack, we haven't worked out what's the perfect tech stack yet. I was hopeful Robina would be that pilot that we could rinse and repeat into other ones. And most of my conversations around the coffee today has been different software and different platforms. So if you see me outside, grab me. I'm very interested to have a conversation about that. The other thing is change of regulation, so things like support at home, which we'll probably talk about in a moment with Byron. So generally speaking, I think the best way to learn is these type of forums where you're sharing knowledge. Probably a good segue for Byron to come up here and face some music.
Are we on here? Great. While we get set, all the people that are standing up the back of the room, there's plenty of seats down around the front, so please don't be shy. The speakers don't bite, I can assure you. You're welcome to come and join us and find a seat. I think they're turned on automatically, gents. But
Hello.
There we go. But to kick us off, I think just to put it in perspective, that was a real crash course in the Odyssey model. Let's cause a few jaws to drop. What are the sorts of price points you're looking at your Chevron Island development? Your price points for your Chevron Island development?
I look at it on a rate per square metre.
Yep.
So we've presently got, as of 2 days ago, 91 million worth of sales. The highest is 19,000 per square metre. The lowest was just high nines. But this one here, because we're an industry that doesn't have to have pre-sales, it's a very important point when you do your development. So we're telling our residents this is a guide. It may flex up to 20%. So it's not putting us in a binding position. So whilst the market's been rising as it has, I think we're in a good position to be able to do that.
But coming to Byron's point earlier around just the value of the brand, and you were talking about Amberfield, you haven't had to spend a cent on marketing. We don't need you to disclose your marketing budgets.
We do spend a bit.
You do spend a bit?
We do a lot of billboards, and if you go to any movie on the Gold Coast, you see Phil. He says, "Hi, I'm Phil," irrespective of what type of movie it is.
So looking at your pipeline, 4 sites, 800 units, would we be right to say you're probably the fastest growing aged care provider in southeast Queensland at the moment with your pipeline alone? What are some of the things that keep you up at night with regards to scaling this model?
A lot. So the very first thing we talk about, we have a capacity conversation once every 3 months. So we have a lot of scheduled formal chats. So the first instance is, who do we take out of Robina to go to Chevron? Because there's residents there at Robina who've got a really strong relationship with our staff. Clearly, Chevron's a nicer product for our staff. For some of them, it's actually closer to home. So that's the first challenge, is to where do you export the IP to deliver on the promise for the 5-star rather than the 4-star product? We're pretty confident we'll be able to find the staff. We've got a bit of a waiting list already for people who are presently employed who want to go to Chevron. We don't use agency. We've never paid a commission. And a lot of that is word of mouth.
Yeah, great. And what about yourself, Byron? We're scaling up for Amberfield, smaller market, ACT, a bit more captured. What are the sorts of things that are keeping you up with your started looking at bringing this new village operational online shortly?
Systems, I would probably think. Our sales and marketing is very strong. There's a big undersupply in Canberra of good quality product. We've done obviously all the analysis, and it feels like it's broad enough and deep enough. We can attract a broad section from independent through to people who need very high levels of care. So it's sort of, our penetration rate, I think, naturally is higher because of that. For us, it's getting the systems to make sure. We came out of startup a couple of years ago, and to have systems that were fit for purpose in that chaos, to have a very strong focus and discipline on scaling, they're not fit for purpose. So that's a big investment for us.
Something you both touched on was the important role that home care packages play just in relation to your ability to deliver care to your residents. And I think we looked at, I think it mentioned the thing, 2 staff to 1 for yourself at Odyssey, which...
I think that was Chris and Phil confusion.
That was Chris and Phil confusion, was it? So looking at, from 1 July, the landscape's changing a bit. How is that going to change or make you look at your business model differently, especially around the important role care plays in your value proposition to make sure it continues to stack up?
I'm not as concerned as maybe some others are. Part of the reason for that is we deliver care at cost. So when you look at the caps, it's the same or under where we are now. Where we think it'll affect us probably in 2 ways. One is how we bill our ad hocs is likely to change. Secondly is some of the other parties where we feel we've got a price advantage on the rate per hour, they may have to come down.
What about yourself, Brian? Byron, sorry.
What's happening on the 1st of July?
We don't have time for jokes. We've only got about 5 minutes to get through.
We are similar to that. Our care is at cost, and I mentioned before, quite heavily subsidised. It will have an impact. moving the needle away from the consumer-directed care and this sort of dictating to the resident what they will receive in nursing and other support services will have an impact. So the human behaviour aspect of that, the care management fee reducing. We have a very flexible model where you can change your care plan often, not every 3 months. So that will have an impact on us. At the end of the day, I think we're all adult enough to know the consumer is going to pay for this at the end of the day. So there'll be different levers pulled within every business to make sure that we're sustainable. So we'll just keep sort of navigating our way through it.
So in short, both of you look at your models and are still quite excited about where it sits in the wider marketplace, even post 1 July. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, a third don't get care from us, a third self-fund. So you're only dealing with a third, so I don't think it'll have a material impact, no. We unashamedly target the business class traveller.
And one of the things I wanted to touch on was, your average length of stay, how that varies from the standard retirement village model. So, I think it's 7 or 8's the average length of stay. How often are you turning over your units at the moment? And commercially, how do you see that? What's that flow and effect to your valuations when you start looking at how it flows through to your balance sheet?
Yeah, we haven't been through a full roll period as yet. When we did our initial forecasting, we thought it would be about 4.25 years, but in reality, I think it'd be closer to 3.25 to 3.5, so it's been quicker than we thought. And obviously, valuations is the present value, your future cash flows, net cash flows, so it actually helps in that sense. But as I was alluding to before, part of our concern is some of the residents coming a little bit more frail as they're not staying as long as we'd like, so we want them to go to hospital and come back. I'm very comfortable with an average rate of 4 years or so. But I think in terms of the valuation, yes, it's a good impact.
Byron?
Different profiles. The landings is literally a blue zone by definition. The average age is 86. We've got 55% over that. It is just a business that we keep providing the care and they're there. So the turnover there is probably 9 to 10 years. Greenway's a different story. It's almost the inverse. We'll have 40 out of 327 turnover this financial year. So it's got higher levels of acuity. It's presenting itself as a very mature village. Amberfield stage 1, they're coming in younger. That will balance itself out as the further stages come on because there'll be higher concentrations of care within those. So that'll probably sit around the 8 or 9.
And you were saying that as new residents were coming in, specifically at the landings, 85% are signing up to your membership model. So you're realising that sort of upfront cash as well?
100% are signing up that come in, 100% signing up to the membership model, 85% paying up front.
Fantastic, great. And I'm just looking at the time. We've got 2 minutes to go, so we've run this really well, gents, so thank you very much. Blue skying your model, so private aged care, there's really yourselves doing it, maybe 1 or 2 others in various capacities. What's stopping this room from looking at your model and seeing if it can apply in other parts of Australia? You're in southeast Queensland, you're in the ACT as well as sort of the northern suburbs of Sydney. Melbourne, South Australia, across to WA. What's stopping operators from, trying to make this model work or actually making this model work elsewhere?
I think it's natural evolution, and given the demand and supply, I think it's a good thing for the industry. So we regularly talk to Byron and his team, liaise with the RA guys, Patrick from the Henley. I think the more people get quality product out there, I think it's a bit naive and selfish to try and keep it to yourself. Certainly for us, we've got zero interest in going outside of Queensland. So we'd look at other southeast Queensland opportunities, but we're spread pretty thin at the moment. So I need to boost the team before I can expand again, but definitely out of Queensland.
Byron?
Yeah, we're an open book as well on as far as the model is concerned. My observations in talking to others and helping others is probably belief. Just believe that you can do it. Believe that it is the way of the future. Believe it is what the consumer wants, and then match the consumer. It's a big step, Bart, because you don't do care half-heartedly. It's a big investment in that care governance piece and the disciplines that you need to be able to roll that out. So it takes a bit of courage and a good dose of investment.
And good funding partners.
And good funding partners as well.
And you got to have fun. Just like the residents, we got to have fun too.
You got to have fun as well. So given that we've got a few seconds left, I might say, just parting words for the room around your model and something thought-provoking to have them go back to their business and go, right, maybe this is something we need to look into a little bit further. What would be your parting words?
That's a good question. I think really is if you want to take on the care, because everyone's facility will need the care, is whether you want to outsource or do it yourself. If you do it yourself, it's hard to do it baked, so to speak. So I think that would be the key thing for me, as to if you need to do it, whether you do it yourself, in which case you have to invest in a team, or whether you outsource it.
As humans, all of us in the room, there is nothing more fulfilling and no greater privilege than to help someone through the end of life with their family and the feedback that you get. I don't think there's a greater privilege than that. For the board sitting in the room, the landings has increased in value by 250% in 6 years. So there is value creation there if it's done properly.
I think that's a pretty thought-provoking final statement, 200% value creation from the landing. So unfortunately, we are out of time. We're running tight. Can I ask everyone to show their appreciation for Aaron and Byron and for being so generous with their care?